Hi, everybody. This is Alan Fine, and I'm here with a familiar face, Gavin Landry, who is now in a new position at Visit Britain, the International Director. We're going to find out what that means while we're here at Destination Britain, North America in San Francisco, and this is Insider Travel Report. Gavin, nice to talk to you.
Alan, it's always a pleasure, and thank you for being at Destination Britain.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I love covering it. But this is extra special because we get to celebrate your promotion. So tell us where you went from and what you're doing and what the plan is.
Sure. Happy to, and thanks for asking, Alan. So as of January of this year, I was elevated to International Director, meaning I'm responsible now for all of our overseas markets, which means that we are in 22 markets worldwide with 18 offices physically in various markets across the globe. So I have that responsibility and really that privilege to work with teams all over the globe as we try to do the one thing that we all focus on, which is driving the visitor economy of Great Britain and ultimately the prosperity of Great Britain through our efforts.
As you were saying, your scope was a little narrower before, and now you're able to look at the thing as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, the structure before the changes were made to the overseas network, it was basically there were 4 international directors. So one for Europe, one for Asia Pacific, one for China, and then, of course, my role, which I was director of the Americas as well as Australia and New Zealand. So I had 4 markets, roughly, 4 or 5 markets, and now I have 22 markets. And now being the only international director, the only overseas director, it gives me really the ability to kind of look across the whole piece, to set strategy for the entire team. And something that I talk about frequently is this idea of one global team, because it's really about how do we capture the expertise that exists, regardless of where the expertise is sat. It can be sat in London, it can be sat in Japan, it can be sat anywhere. How do we capture that expertise and deploy that towards that overall goal that we have that I just mentioned about driving the visitor economy? So it's really been quite fun, and I have to tell you, it's a privilege because these teams, Alan, are just so talented. We have about 100 souls overseas that are sat among those 18 offices. And the work that we do, it's inspiring, but these are really wonderful people. It really comes down to the people, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And you were talking about you're going to base this on some pillars.
Yes. So I've put in place something that I call an engagement strategy. So the idea is that we engage across 4 pillars. So with the media, with our trade partners, with our commercial partners, and of course with our diplomacy partners. And what we try to do in those 4 pillars is really, with the media, influence how they present Britain and how they can align to our seasonality and dispersal goals. So we want them to align with those objectives. In the case of the trade, it's how do we introduce new product and retain our product and remain competitive in that highly important trade space.
Certainly a good way to do it.
This is one way we do it. We'll be doing Destination Britain in India later this year, Destination Britain in China later this year. In the commercial partner space, it's really about extending our reach. So we have a major partnership with British Airways as an example, and to get to their audience vis-a-vis our partnership with them is critically important for us to extend our reach and extend our impact. And then of course our diplomacy partners, we try to be what we call part of one HMG, so one His Majesty's government. And what we do there in that space is just making sure that the things that are critical to tourism are kept on the agenda and part of the business plan. So a recent example of that is our team in France has been working with the ambassador in Paris, and they, as a result of this effort, put forward a mobility conference talking about student youth travel and student mobility. Our CEO actually attended the mobility conference, and now because of this effort, it's being pushed up the agenda on the free trade agreement that's being formed with France, between Britain and France. Really important because student travel is a critically important piece of our tourism component. So these are the types of things.
That's just France, and as you're saying, your global your outreach is global.
That's right. So across those 4 pillars, I'm also fond of saying we don't engage for engagement's sake. We don't just have engagements and interactions with folks just to have those interactions. We're really trying to produce wins, and those wins, those outcomes across those 4 pillars are where we're going to focus our time and our effort. So it's a very specific strategy. It's very focused. The team seems to be responding really, really well to it. It is a new way of working, so it requires some change and some new ways of thinking. But ultimately, what we want is as we deploy all this expertise, whether it's delivering our marketing programs or delivering our engagement strategy overseas. We want to form this kind of fungibility among the resource that we have. So putting people on project teams, regardless of where they're sat, based on their expertise. So you could have our country manager in Brazil, our country manager in Japan, our country manager in Korea, all working on a project that's actually taking place in France. And so there's a 24-hour operation kind of that happens. So when one country goes to bed, the other country is waking up. And if you build the project teams correctly, then you have this 24-hour operation, and I think you're much more effective as an organization as a result.
So we always talk numbers when we speak, and what they mean.
Right.
So I'd like to do that now, because your numbers are, I think you've got the best data now that I've ever seen, and I know that Nick Dubois, your chairman, is big on numbers, so I'm sure that's part of it. So let's talk about, and we're going to show our audience some of these visuals that you guys have. You want to talk about annual visits and annual spend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of anchors the reason why we do what we do, and that is the importance of tourism to the overall economy of Great Britain. Prior to the pandemic, we would talk about the numbers, which are 3.1 million jobs, roughly 10% of GDP. You're talking about 127 billion in annual impact, and over 200,000 SMEs that are part of this industry. So critically important to the overall economy of Great Britain. And the visitor economy is a linchpin, really, in terms of how we're driving the recovery that's taken place since pandemic. So we're very, very happy about where we stand at the moment in terms of where we have been recovering. It has been driven by North America. I think Nick told you the same, that the North American markets have driven our recovery. Very proud of it. We are crashing through record numbers that have been held for decades, and that's through good economies or bad economies, and through periods of conflict and periods of no conflict. I mean, these are well-established long records that we're crashing through, both in Canada and in the U.S. So it's really been quite positive, and we're talking to industry all the time about how does next year look, and are we okay? Is there a bubble, and are we seeing any kind of recession? Not at all. Things seem very strong. The North American markets are very interested in the UK product, and have been just voting with their feet. They're telling us that they want to come, and they're going to continue to do so.
So they're going always London foremost, but Scotland's moving up.
Well, it's actually interesting because we do, as one of our key strategies, have a dispersal strategy, also a seasonality strategy. So we want people to go London plus, and we want people to go farther and see other locations in England, Scotland, Wales. So that is one of our strategies. And if you look at the numbers over the years, what we are finding is that we are making some inroads in that strategy. So sending more people from London to other parts of England and other parts of the UK is a key part of our effort. And then, of course, promoting the periods of the off season, if you will, or shoulder seasons. So anything outside of summer is going to be an emphasis for us. And you'll see that even our marketing will take place in periods that are driving towards those spring, fall seasons, and of course the winter, as much as we possibly can, so that we can really make tourism a year-round productive industry. You don't want tourism just to be kind of like a summer job program. It needs to be a year-round industry. People need to be able to have an entire career in tourism on a year-round basis, and that's one of our key goals.
I'm a filmmaker. I enjoy film tourism. I know that's part of the drive to Britain and London, but I wonder if Scotland is benefiting from its film tourism and why it's second.
I think it absolutely is. I had a good conversation yesterday with one of our colleagues with United Airlines, and they had just taken, I think, 13 folks that are looking for locations to Scotland, and worked with Visit Scotland in order to do that. And they cited a bunch of locations that could be possibly used for filmmaking. United Airlines actually partnered with Visit Scotland on this. So they complemented the airfare in order to facilitate this happening. And absolutely, film and TV. We know that anything on screen is a driver. So whether it's film or television, as seen on screen drives visitation. And I also had a conversation yesterday with a group called Authentic Vacations, and they told me that they now have 13 departures for Wrexham that is built. So London, Cardiff, up to Wrexham area, and then over to Manchester during the winter. So they've built that 13 departures in the winter, happening for basically because of this phenomenon that we all know that's Wrexham. So yes, the film and TV is a very strong aspect of our business. We're very fortunate also, I'll just add to that, Disney has just taken the decision to move their production from Atlanta to the UK because it's so strong. Our film industry is so strong that that's a key part of the the business side of the equation as well.
One of the things I asked your chairman was, are you proactive? You're just reacting, oh, wasn't this great? No, you're seeking production, and obviously you want to get it in the outlying areas to bring, every time there's something in the outlying area, travel goes there.
Absolutely. I mean, as an example, you may have seen Shetland. I'm not sure if you did, but Shetland now is on the map, and people are going to Shetland. It's actually not the easiest location to get to, but you take that little 1 hour flight and get over to the Shetland Islands. Certainly Guernsey, and one of my favorites, the Potato Peel Society. I don't know if you've read the book or seen the movie, but the Guernsey and the Channel Islands are all become really popular. Of course, the Bridgerton effect is there. The Harry Potter effect is there. Oxfordshire, I was in Oxfordshire not long ago and actually went to the location where they have the dining hall, and it is literally just what you saw in Harry Potter on the screen. So it's so fun to see this, and the phenomenon is really, it's a driver. We know that it's a true driver of travel.
Are there any other numbers that you want to highlight?
Well, I think the biggest highlight that I would tell you is I'm really proud to see how the sentiment around sustainability is continuing to grow. Part of our strategy on sustainability is not just environmental, but it's also social and economic. So social means to have no harm to culture on a basis of those that travel to a place, and economic means to spread the wealth so that it's not just all in one area, that it's actually spreading the wealth across the UK. And the fact that our consumers are really demanding sustainable experiences, and the tour operators are responding with those products to say, here's how you can travel most effectively. The whole concept is around take only memories, leave only footsteps, and that's really in a nutshell what we're trying to achieve. So the sentiment we have in the around sustainability is really one I'm very proud of.
Well, I just was talking with Rafi's Tours, and I was impressed with them saying, we don't put everyone in one hotel. We spread the wealth. We make sure that all the hotels survive for generations.
That's right. And that's just one way. But certainly as an NTO, National Tourism Office, one of our key strategies is around sustainable, accessible, diverse, and inclusive tourism industry. And so those are all things that we want to strive for. Sort of a moral imperative, but also it's a business imperative, because in each of those sectors there is a business result that can be achieved.
Thank you for talking to us.
It's a pleasure, Alan, really, truly. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a great event.
Thank you very much. Take care.
And this is Alan Fine for Insider Travel Report.